Hello, good evening. También puedo hablar un poco de español, pero no es suficiente para algo así. Entonces, continúo en inglés. So, as Antonio mentioned, I am Paul Taaks, creative director of Overhype Studios. And this is a pretty rare occasion for us because we like to hide in our cave, to be honest, and instead of delivering talks. But maybe the story of how Battle Brothers was created is pretty interesting and even inspiring to some of you, because I decided to call the talk Bootstrapped Game Development because this is exactly what we did. We started basically with nothing and created a video game, founded a company, and took it from there. The game we're talking about is Battle Brothers. It's the only game we created so far, but and this is like a very short overview over the talk. I'll introduce the game to you very briefly and tell you the story how we developed it. And at the end, I will give you a few of the key learnings that we made. A little disclaimer for that, it's just my opinion, basically, so take everything with a grain of salt. This is the key learnings, is what I would advise others, that what went well, what didn't went well, some questions you can answer yourself for your game. This is something I want to, like the most important points. And feel free to ask them or have a different opinion. It's just basic opinion. So Overhype Studios, we are 7 people by now. When we started, we were 3, so we hired a few new guys for our next game. We are located in Hamburg, but we have a guy from America and a guy from Spain, so it's a pretty wild team. We're absolutely independent. We tried working with a publisher, it didn't work out, and at the beginning nobody wanted our games, so we just stayed independent, and it has its benefits. Let's put it this way. We are the creators of Battle Brothers, our only game, as I mentioned so far, but we are working on an unannounced project, and this is why we increased the team. So, Battle Brothers. This is the key visual. I painted this. Looks awesome. It's a turn-based tactical RPG, as the title already suggests. It's a multi-layered game. I don't know. I suppose most of you know XCOM. Well, back in the day, there was only the old XCOM UFO Defense or whatever it was called, which was, like, I think one of the best games ever created. So we just say, okay, let's put this in a medieval setting, and it took a few turns, the game changed quite a bit, and it ended up at a medieval mercenary company simulation with very deep tactical turn-based combat. And you move around on the procedurally generated world map with procedurally generated mercenaries, fight against enemies. The procedural generation of the whole game opens up for a lot of replayability, so people really sink a lot of hours into it, and you can really dive deep in this game. So I have a few numbers for you to like a few numbers about Battle Brothers. Released in 2017, it's quite old right now, but it's still going strong. Like, it's still selling well. We entered early access in 2015, so 2 years of early access. Yeah, we're almost 500,000 copies of the base game sold, which is pretty solid. Over 1 million DLCs sold. These are just some very high numbers to impress you, so you listen to me. We created 5 DLCs, 2 of them for free, but the paid DLCs have like 40 to 50% attachment rate, which is extremely high, and I will maybe talk about that later again, because this is absolutely unusual. Average playtime is also very high, 118 hours, and the median playtime is a lot lower. I think it's like 32 or so, but still there are some people who have like 4,000 or 3,000 hours in the game, so this is why it's so high. But overall, it's a game where you can really sink into. 88 positive reviews on Steam could be better, but it's okay because it's very frustrating. Like, even for me, Sometimes I had to quit like a bug testing session because it was so frustrating. So where did we start? Working full-time jobs, no gaming-related education, no funding, no programmer. Just a quick word regarding this. So this is where we started. So it's basically it's not possible to get to a lower number than this, 0, to get more 0 than this 0. So you have to be at the right time, at the right point in the right time sometimes, but yeah.
It's cutting a little bit, so
yeah.
use this.
Okay, I will use this. There's another advantage. And now you know what I use my hand for. I don't have to put it in my pocket awkwardly. Okay. So this is where we started, and I think a lot of people can relate to this starting point, or maybe they even have a programmer, or they know how to program. Basically the idea, I have a twin brother, but he's afraid to fly, so he's not here today. And we just, as I mentioned before, thought about, the old XCOM UFO defense, this is the best game ever made. We want to play this game in a medieval setting, and we were waiting for a few years, nobody made this game, so we decided, okay, there's no other way to play this game than create it ourselves. So we started with some paper prototypes, came up with ideas, wrote fictional game design because we know we cannot really pull it off. And at that time, I was working as a concept artist at a browser game company in Hamburg, and about my background, I'm a geologist from Hamburg, and after finishing my studies, and a hobby artist, after finishing my studies, I applied as a concept artist and as a geologist, and I got hired as a concept artist, so a bit of coincidence there, was not my decision. And we wanted to play this game, so we started designing it, and then at some point started looking for a programmer to help us out, just as a hobby project. Like as I was working in this browser game company, my brother was working in an advertisement company, and we tried to find somebody who can help us program a little. We had to go through quite a few people, like unpaid voluntaries. They joined the project. Oh, this sounds awesome. 2 weeks later, they are gone. So this is what normally happens. But then one guy decided to stick, and he was studying psychology in Hamburg. And he actually started helping us out a lot, and we got a very, very first basic prototype. The basic idea was not to found a company or create a game. It was just, let's see how far we can get. Can we create a game? Can we create something that we can play? This was the first step. So the beginning, we really, really focused hard on reducing the workload. So I created all the art and the assets for the game. And at the beginning, we wanted to have full body figures animated in Flash, and they're walking around the battlefield and stuff like that, and it looks very, very fancy. But after a while, we saw that working only like in the evenings and on the weekends, the time restraints, the resource restraints are so harsh that we have to cut every corner that we can. There's no other possibility. So I just cut the figurines in half, so they're only chess pieces without legs. And at the beginning, everybody said it looks ridiculous, because it looks ridiculous. But now people say, oh, that's a unique look. And everybody says, yeah, in your next game, the people cannot have legs because you will lose your unique look. So, but this is like one of the big corners we had to cut. So the same goes for translations, modding, everything. We just did not care about anything but the core gameplay mechanics. So we managed to keep going for 1.5 years, I think, like this. And then we reached the limit. It was not possible anymore. And decided to go into early access a bit early, because this was like the moment of truth where we decided, okay, we put this game out. If we earn enough money to quit our jobs, okay, we continue, and if not, we just bury it all. And after the early access phase, we still kept our jobs just to be on the safe side. And our goal was always to have enough finances for the next 3 months. So, and as soon as we got enough money for the next 3 months, then we then we quit our day jobs and finally started working full time on the game. And it was a pretty big step, but from then on it went pretty well, and the financial buffer we had increased and increased and increased, so we decided to work more on the game, add more features, rework more features, and in the end we stayed in the early access for 2 years, added a lot of stuff. We didn't add legs, but we added a lot of other stuff that we originally didn't even plan for, and had a very active community, a very enthusiastic, vocal community. So we managed to get to the full release eventually when we thought the game is basically complete. This is our vision of the game. We can finally release it after 2 years, and we did so. And we told the people, okay, yeah, cool, the game is finished. We will now move on to the next game. And there was a big shitstorm, of course, because people wanted us to continue the game. And we were just like creatively burned out and said, okay, yeah, now we do a new game, whatever. But people were really emotional about it, and in hindsight, I would say it was a big mistake to tell them that we were not continuing in the game, and it was also wrong, because we did continue. Afterwards, like as I mentioned before, there was this shitstorm. People were like review bombing us and everything, but the game was pretty well regarded. We got some guy at Valve who was a big fan of the game, and he invited us over. And in Seattle, we talked to a guy, Jonathan Blue, who was one of the guys who created Steam. And we asked him about the problem, like, okay, yeah, the people really hate us. We just went into a hideout and didn't communicate anymore. And they were asking for more content for a DLC, and he said, but we don't want to get blackmailed by the people. And he said, yeah, just make a DLC, whatever. And they said, okay. So we created a small DLC, and like a free DLC, and the people were really happy, and everyone was happy, and we started to like the game again, and created 4 more DLCs. So these DLCs actually performed very well, and with each DLC, our player base increased. Because, I forgot to mention, we pitched the game to a few publishers, but nobody wanted it. We pitched them before the full release. But nobody wanted it, so we stayed self-published. And this is the time where this really paid off, because 100% of the revenue went to us, and we could reinvest into the new game and hire some people. We are completely independent. Nobody tells us what to do. And this is why we are working on a completely new game, and hired a bunch of people, rented a new office, so its future's looking bright. So I think this is something that you don't see every day, because some people like to hide this stuff, or I don't know. This is the sales, basically like a sales curve for the first 3 years of Battle Brothers. Is there a pointer in there? No. This is the early access release. Here it starts. Then you have the full release, the big chunk. It's over here. It's the full release. And then you have these gigantic spikes. So, okay, early access release, yeah, okay, full release, it's okay, but what are these spikes? These spikes are basically just visibility on Steam. It's as simple as that, basically. Back in the day, you had like marketing rounds where you can get visibility on the front page for a few hours or so, and there were also things like a Steam Flash sale where you're on the front page for 12 hours or so. And you can immediately see the impact of these events, where for some reason or the other our game was presented on the front page of Steam. The sales numbers are extremely high. And compared to that, it's like even the full release said, yeah, okay, it's good, but it's not that massive. And also, in my experience, like everything media related, like articles in Rock, Paper, Shotgun or PC Gamer or whatever, or even big streamers playing your game, like in our case, had almost no measurable impact on the sales curve. which is pretty interesting. So it's basically like for our game, it's basically visibility on Steam equals sales. There are big spikes. So what are the key learnings? Or like, what if somebody asks me what I learned creating this game, is what I would say. For example, like the first thing is motivation for indie games. I think, well, as I mentioned before, like the idea of the game or the motivation to create the game was, for us, was just, okay, we want to play the game. And it's not, we want to be indie developers, or we want to get in the industry, or we want to make millions of money, or found a company or whatever. It was the first pretty naive idea was, okay, we want to play this game. So I always think it's important that you know why your game should exist. This is my take on it, because sometimes I see games and I think, does this game have a reason to exist? I don't know. And the people producing it cannot even really answer this question. So my advice would be make sure that your game has a reason to exist. Secondly, regarding development, I think what is really important is focusing extremely hard on the core of your game, like starting the development with the core of your game, iterating it a lot. Like if something's not working, you have to throw it out, or if two systems are working against each other, or if one is redundant, you have to go back and throw it out. There's no other way, in my opinion. And you have to really polish the core of the game until it works and it's fun, and then you can add like the peripherals. That's what I would suggest. And also, especially as an indie dev, sometimes it's very difficult to decide what to leave out and what to put in, because on one hand you want to have a big vision and you want to create something great, but on the other hand your resources are extremely limited, and balancing these two things is very difficult as an indie developer. And so if you have any possibilities to cut some corners, to reduce the workload, you have to do it, because normally there's only two possibilities, like you stop developing the game, or you have to cut some corners. Community, oh yes, that's a big part I didn't even talk about in the story of the Battle Brothers development. We started developing the community pretty early, I think 1 year before the early access start, and we started by writing a blog. So we just created a website, Battle Brothers, and started a blog where we were talking about our ideas, what the game should be, what the systems are, why are these systems designed like this, how is the combat working, how is the world map working, like real mechanics, like something the people can talk about. Of course, at the beginning, nobody talked about it. There was like the first 20 posts without a single comment, but we started posting our blog posts in different forums, like strategy gaming forums and stuff like that. And slowly but surely, people started coming in and discussing these topics that we were giving. The thing is with community management, or like building a community, it's not community management, is that I would suggest that you start early, and what is very important is that if you start posting, don't stop posting. So make sure that if you are posting every second, like a blog post every second Friday, make sure that you really have something prepared for every second Friday, because people really get used to getting these posts regularly and you being reliable, and they will vanish as soon as you stop this cycle. Apart from that, what I think is, it's not always possible, but what I think is important, that as an indie, that you're giving real insights in these blog posts. It's not just some, oh yeah, we played some PlayStation last night, or we're working hard, that's it. What's your favorite character? But that you have really, okay, we have this mechanic planned, this is coming up, it's working like this, so something that people can actually discuss. Early access, a big topic. You could make a talk on its own about this. For us, it was extremely important, because it went on for 2 years, okay, but we had a lot of bug fixing done in the early access, because it's a big difference if 3 guys sit there and occasionally test the game, or 3,000 people. So we really managed to delete a lot of bugs, make the game run stable. The other part is balancing, because our game has a lot of procedural elements. It's very difficult and borderline impossible to actually balance the game. And the community really helped out. Like, as I mentioned before, there are guys with 3,000 or 4,000 hours in the game. They know a lot better what works and what doesn't in my game than I do. So you really have to talk to these guys, and early access is a great tool for this. And on top of that, like the additional financing coming in. The issue with this is that it doesn't work for every game. It works well for a completely procedurally generated game like ours, where you can just start over and over and over again, and each time you have a new experience, and every player has a different experience. But there are also very cool games like adventure games, linear games, and where it's, I don't know, where you don't want to spoil the whole story and everything. So for linear games, it's tricky to pull off an early access without spoiling everything. I don't know. So it completely depends on your game if early access is a good idea or not. For us, it was perfect. DLCs, yeah. At the beginning, we did not want to create any DLCs, but after we did it, we actually noticed it was a great tool to really grow the world and grow our vision beyond the base game. And we approached it like in a way, like an actual expansion to the game, like big chunks of content, completely new systems that we added crafting and stuff like that. And if it's worth producing DLCs is also a bit hard to tell. It depends. You need I think you need a pretty active community, and a community with a high playtime. Like people have to play your game a lot and be very active in your community. It doesn't necessarily mean like you have to have tens or like thousands of sales, but that your community is active and that there are people actively requesting more. Indie advantages. So it's not that indies are always at a disadvantage compared to big companies and big developers, because I think actually there are some things that you can, or that indies can do and the big companies have a hard time doing. For example, taking quick decisions is very difficult sometimes in a big company because everybody is involved and there's like 10 people taking each decision, everything, and the vision of the game gets watered down a lot, in my opinion. If you are a small team, you can take quick decisions, you have a clear vision of your game, and you can go somewhere where big companies don't dare to go because they have to look at market research and stuff like that. And as an indie, I think you can just go for whatever you want, what you think is fun. And this is something that's a big advantage. Pricing. Also a very interesting topic where how much does your game cost? It's very difficult to say that. At the beginning, we went to a conference in Malmö and met a guy from Steam there. And we thought, okay, who can tell us how much to charge for the game? Yeah, a guy from Steam, okay, he knows, he will tell us. And we talked to him and he told us, yeah, I have no idea, you have to decide this. You have to look, what do others offer? Like in the same price range, what do other games offer? And what is your target audience? For example, for us, this was a very important thing because the game is pretty complicated. It's hard to get into, but you can play it for thousands of hours. It's very deep. It's more like I would say for an older audience, and the older audience might have a little more money because they are older. So, and it's a niche game, like a tactical turn-based hardcore game. It's pretty niche, so we know our target audience is small, but a little older, they have a bit more money, so we priced it rather expensively for that time. So these are all factors that you have to think about when deciding on a price for your game. The last point, I think, connections is, and this is something I actually don't really understand because it's so easy to get in contact with other developers. It's sometimes shocking. For example, just on Twitter, if you like a game and you like the developer, you can sometimes just hit them up and they will most of the time answer. For example, when we were thinking about the pricing and also the DLCs, we contacted Tyler Siegmann from Darkest Dungeon, just wrote him on Twitter, oh yeah, we got some questions, and he said, oh yeah, cool, and he helped us out and got us some feedback, and we're still writing with him every once in a while. So my suggestion would be, if you have someone who is creating a similar game or a successful game in a similar style or genre, just hit them up, ask them for anything. Like they even give you their sales numbers. They are really helpful, and everybody really wants to give some advice to other companies. It's not in the indie scene. They really don't want to keep their secrets. They want to help others, and they want others to succeed as well. And this is, for example, I get one email per year maybe for someone. No, not even. One email every 2 years from some developer asking me anything. So it's a bit disappointing because back in the day when we started, I would have been very glad if someone could just have told me, how could this work? What do you think about this? Should we make a DLC? Should we go for early access? So this is something I'm actually still missing, like approaching other devs. And it's really easy, like even we talked to some guys from Diablo 3 team and stuff. You can just approach whomever you want, and I think like 80% of them will answer, my opinion. Oh, there's even one more. Okay, publisher. It's a difficult topic because, as I mentioned before, we pitched the game to a few publishers. They said, the game is too far developed, and the other guy said, it's not developed too far, and one said, yeah, we're looking for something with more of a story, and it's not fitting the portfolio, whatever. So we ended up without a publisher, and now it's a big plus for us because we get like 100% of the revenue. And the publisher can really, or my suggestion would be, like before signing with a publisher, make sure that you're really sure that he can offer you something that you cannot achieve on your own. So you really have to ponder this question. Of course, most of the time there will be some money involved, so they provide the funding. Okay, I can understand that. The problem is that there's the possibility to end up in a dependency that's not ending ever, because if they get like 50% of your revenue, you will be staying there forever. There's no way to earn enough money to just produce the next game on your own, probably. So it's a difficult decision, but publishers are getting better and better. It's not the 90s anymore, and there are some pretty cool publishers out there. But just something to consider. So here's the overview of what I said. Maybe there's something different than I just said, but just read it and take a picture. And this is how I want to conclude the talk. Thank you.
Hey, now, thank you, Paul. We've got time for one question. So if any of you, there's a raised hand over here.
Before you went to early access, did you ever thought of getting into a crowdfunding or Kickstarter, something like that?
Yeah, we thought about doing a Kickstarter, but then we decided that there are two main difficulties. Like one would be that's a pretty big overhead of taking care of the whole campaign. And the second was that we were actually afraid of the Kickstarter rewards because the development was so incremental. Like we worked from like 3 months to 3 months to 3 months, so we never knew what we can actually achieve and what we can promise. So we were very afraid of promising too much. Those were the two reasons, but mainly because we thought, okay, Kickstarter is draining some resources, like managing the whole campaign, and we cannot afford even that. Yeah, that was basically, we focused completely on the game and then just tried to go directly to early access.
Thank you.